on Anchor, Breaker, Spotify, Radio Public, and Pocket Cast. This is Under Review from V Studios. Hello there, welcome to Under Review, Series 1, Episode 4. Today we're talking about the Blue Wall in a live interview for Microsoft Teams. We're going to finish the conversation we started last week. Then we're going to move on to discuss the summer mini-budget, which was introduced by Rishi Sunak about 2 days ago from Friday. Might have been 3 days actually. So in the headlines, on the 3rd of August, Welsh pubs and restaurants are going to be reopening indoors. And also, carers at care homes are applying to be key workers, basically. Also, the UK quarantine rules are being relaxed for lots of countries that have been basically trusted to have low coronavirus levels, although Serbia has been eliminated from the list. I happen to think that they're putting places where Britons go on holiday on the list. Don't tell anyone I said that, but that is kind of my view. Also, Scotland is loosening its restrictions as well, so it's all happening now. As well as Boots and John Lewis, they're both cutting lots of jobs, as well as lots of other companies who've been severely affected by the lockdown. So John Lewis are closing 2 branches, and Boots are closing a few of their opticians. I just thought they were key workers, really, and they've been open throughout the lockdown. Anyway, without further ado, let's get on to our interview. Hello, welcome to the interview. We have Oliver Whale today on Microsoft Teams. He is answering questions about the pledge by Boris Johnson 2 weeks ago to build, build, build. So let's begin off with the first question. Should we build, build, build our way out of the economical crisis?
By all means, yes. Boris's plan has, in my opinion, it's a good plan. If you were to jumpstart the economy, it's like jumpstarting a car. But also, you need to be careful, and I'm using a made-up metaphor here, that you don't accidentally jumpstart the car, and then the car that's jumpstarting it gets a flat battery.
Yeah, that is a very good.
So in this case, the car that's being jump-started would be the economy, and the car that's jump-starting it is the Treasury. So if the Treasury would jump-start the economy too much, it'd be excellent for the economy. You get an economical boom and plenty of growth. But then you'd also have financial troubles within the country, and I don't think anyone can afford to do much renting and loaning at the moment. So I think we need to balance how much we jumpstart the economy, and also the build, build, build and jobs, jobs, jobs debate, which one's better. Yeah. I think we have to do them both. Half and half.
You need to balance them both, because otherwise one side will be left out and one side will just be too overloaded, and like the car will explode or the other car will go flat.
Yeah, yes.
As you put it. So
it's a careful balance. And I don't envy the Treasurer or the Chancellor or Boris Johnson at the moment. And if I put this out there, I'm not a really big fan of politicians, but I do feel for them.
They do argue a lot.
I mean, that is kind of their job.
Yeah. I like it when they shout at each other. Anyway, the second question is, if you were the Chancellor, what would you spend your money on right now?
I'd spend it partly on making sure the NHS is kept going, because we don't want this. This is the first major lockdown that's been recorded in human history, and we don't want it to just to fall flat at the first hurdle. But we also need, as I said, spend money into jumpstarting the economy.
Yeah,
so
we need to balance everything, probably.
I try and go thirds on the furlough scheme, the NHS, and the jumpstarting the economy.
Shouldn't we wean people off the furlough scheme, as they put it, and get them more jobs, or get them retrained, as the jobs message tries
Bear in
to
mind
carry
that
that message.
the COVID-19 crisis is not over. It's really not over.
Yeah.
We haven't finished with it yet. And my guess is we'll never be. There's always going to be something in the background.
Yeah, I think we probably will get a second wave, and I think as we're pressing on opening shops and pubs and stuff, and even as I think I'm going to talk about on the podcast this week for the second part, we're giving people like vouchers to buy stuff, and we're almost forgetting about COVID-19. It's still out there, and it's still a killer virus.
Yes, it's not, as one of my relatives put it, it's not become less deadly. We've just grown used to it.
Yeah, just because it's kind of in lesser numbers now doesn't mean it's going to stay like that, because it's obviously up to us how this crisis goes on. Okay. And I think I'm going to probably interview about that next week, this kind of subject. Are we loosening too fast? Are we spending too much money? Anyway, the third question: do you prefer jobs over build?
Well, as I said earlier, I think I have nothing wrong with either of them. They're both very, very good ideas. They're both different ways to do the same thing. So going back to my jump-starting a car metaphor, you can jump-start a car by using another car. That transfers to power and it jump-starts. You can also jump-start it by using one of those jump-start packs. So it's basically two ways to do the same thing. Some of them have benefits. There's some benefits that the other doesn't have. And there's some things that one thing doesn't have that the other does. So they're both very good methods, and I think we should balance them out. And I don't think that's occurred to many people.
I guess build, you could say it's the engine of a car, and jobs is the actual car. So the treasury jump starts build, and then the build drives forward, and then jobs also drives forward, because obviously building stuff is going to give builders jobs, and you could be hiring or retraining a lot more people as a result of these new pledges.
Yes.
Okay. A fourth question, a bit different. It's not so political. If you were to build, what would you build?
Well, we've already seen that our country's NHS can be easily overwhelmed. So I think there's been also a lack of resources in the media before all this. And I think we do need to focus on the NHS. Because we need to update it. Some of it is fairly out of date.
I think they need a birthday present, actually. I think it was the 70th anniversary or something.
Yes, 70th was a few years ago, 73rd now, or 75th.
It's your birthday present.
Yeah. Yes, a birthday present of updating it.
Yeah. Or not updating, maybe upgrading it. Well, yeah, maybe he did say in his outline of what he was going to build, like more schools, more hospitals, more roads. I'm not sure about the roads really, because we should really be building more public transport. I think as soon as my dad heard that, he thought, no, build trams. Yeah.
I mean, trams are...
Well, yeah, trams and that kind of thing.
But it doesn't seem like... It's very good for highly populated cities instead of buses.
Yeah, I think he meant like public transport rather than more roads. Not maybe trams in particular, but obviously that is part of it.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, is it number 5? Would you spend more money on the climate emergency?
I'd say at the moment we are fairly limited of resources, and people know that. People can understand that.
Yeah.
I think I'd still put a bit in, because I was reading something from the something about climate in a big official organisation, and they were saying that if we don't do something soon, within the next 5 years, I think it was, the Earth could reach dangerous temperatures, doing a fair bit of damage. Well, I don't alarm anyone.
Yeah, there was the Paris Accord.
Not exactly sure these are official figures, But some scientists were saying that.
Well,
I think we do need to. It's not. The government isn't always to blame about this. Sometimes there's little they can do. It's very little they can do.
yeah.
So I'd say a bit more, but not much.
But not maybe currently, because we're currently focusing our efforts on what's currently going on.
Exactly.
And maybe as we move on, as the economy recovers, we can do more on that. But it's definitely not going to go out of our minds. And I think I saw recently that they're investing in lots of houses to get more efficient insulation and more eco-friendly house materials. So,
Indeed.
yeah, I think, the final question, are we spending enough money on stimulating the economy, as they put it? Or are we spending too much money?
I think money isn't going to. Money has there's a limited extent it can help. It can help. So for some things, money is going to be perfect. It's going to boost the economy, that bit it needs. But for other things, you can't bribe. You couldn't bribe someone into spending.
Yeah, well, I guess money is very important because it's what the economy is made out of, but it's also people that, it's also who are you spending the money on, what are you spending the money on, as well as how much you're spending and who is going to be affected as a result of this in the next generation. It is going to have a knock-on effect by the money we've spent here, which is more than we normally would. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for doing this interview, and I'm going to stop recording. Bye-bye. Thank you, Oliver, for that interview. Now we're going to talk about the summer mini-budget, which was declared by the Chancellor last week, which packs a punch, it's fair to say. There's lots of pledges, and it's almost a mini manifesto for the Conservatives for the year and the year ahead, perhaps for the foreseeable future. That's in part 2, which is coming up now. Yes. It's the mini budget. The mini budget, which was pledged by the Chancellor last week. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has promised lots of extra money to attempt to stimulate the economy, as he puts it. So, the mini budget announced this week, actually, well, depends when you listen to it, allowed lots of support for the hospitality sector, which has seen record levels of shrinking as a result of being shut down throughout the UK lockdown. So, throughout the lockdown, places like hotels and restaurants and cafes have been forced to close because those are the rules. They are part of the hospitality sector if you're not so good in your terminology. And now, since the 4th of July, we are being encouraged to go back to the hospitality sector, which we have since forgotten about, to buy more stuff and boost the economy, get it back on its feet, especially by Rishi Sunak, who has been almost encouraging Boris Johnson to do this further easing and get the economy back going again. So, as I said, Rishi Sunak really wants the economy to bounce back and get it back to normal, if not better than normal, because obviously we want to boost the economy always. So, there are a few points in this. So, the first one, firstly, the most surprising thing Sunak is providing, which I think is actually quite hilarious that this is happening, because this is quite crazy, to be fair. He is providing 50% off vouchers for use at restaurants, pubs, etc. Now, terms and conditions now, which allow you to claim 50% of your meal up to a maximum of £10 per person, including children. If they're not going back to school, then they do get 50% off meals. And that is from Monday to Wednesday. Yeah, caught you out there, didn't I, with the terms and conditions. Also, the government will provide a £1,000 bonus to companies for every employee that they take off furlough and pay in full to go back to work. So I suppose this is to encourage for the furlough scheme to end, as it is going to end in October, is it? sometime soon, and it's not that far away. It's getting closer and closer, that big deadline. So yeah, they're encouraging people to go back to work. He's also keen on getting young people trained in apprenticeships, so is strongly encouraging people, especially young ones, to either train or retrain in order to get a job back. And a stamp duty holiday is also coming for those buying a property worth under £500,000. So they don't need to pay stamp duty for their purchase. And if you didn't know what stamp duty is, it's like a tax that people pay when they're buying houses. To be fair, it's all happening so fast currently. Since the stay-at-home message, we've had so many easing of the lockdown. It's really happening quite fast. I'm struggling to keep up with what's happening because it's really hard to take on all this information all the time. So, also, in recent days and weeks, more support packages have been provided across the UK, including a big package worth billions. I think it's 1 billion maybe, for the arts sector. So the arts sector has been begging throughout lockdown, especially since this further easing recently, for extra funds. So let's talk a little bit about what we've had. So I've just explained to you, I've basically given you a mini budget there for that. I've basically just repeated what Sunak said for what he's pledging. There is probably a few other smaller bonuses and stuff, but those are definitely the key expensive things they're doing. So let's imagine you go into a restaurant, okay? You can claim 50% off vouchers for use at the restaurants, pubs, or cafes, etc. You can claim 50% off your meal up to a maximum of £10 per person. So I think you could find maybe some loopholes in this. You could take in lots of extra people with you. You could take in lots of friends who maybe just don't want to eat, and you could just they would contribute towards the discount, especially children. Yeah, so that is a quite bad thing for people who are not buying things in the actual restaurant. But also, what I think is going to be knock-on effect with this, as I think I said in the last episode I was talking about, who is going to pay for this again? Who is paying for this? Are the next generation going to be really knocked by this huge, big investment in getting the economy back? So what are we going to do is the economy going to bounce back up again and then bounce down again, or not bounce down, just plummet again into oblivion like it did before? Because I think it's probably better if the economy stays stable, maybe getting gradually higher than going whoop whoop, which would definitely not be good in that. And if we do get a second wave of this virus anyway, this huge investments right now might be completely useless, because the economy will just crash again. You might as well just wait for the second crash. So let's hit you with the questions. Would you raise tax to allow for these bold changes to take place? So imagine you were the government and you're pledging all these things, and there is something missing from your speech. Where is the money coming from? So would you raise tax if you were the government to allow for these bold changes to take place? And also, if you were the Chancellor, would you really spend this much money? And would you really spend it in these almost weird situations? I think it's kind of crazy that they're giving us restaurant vouchers. And also a quite controversial statement, are we easing lockdown too fast? So obviously there was some criticism early on about we started lockdown too early, and now started lockdown too late, and now we're easing it too early. So clearly this government is quite keen on getting the economy back going, but are we compromising our health here? What do you think about that? Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. Let's just give it a summary again. We are giving 50% off vouchers for use at restaurants, £1,000 bonuses to companies for every employee that they take off furlough and pay in full to go back to work. Also, really wanting to get young people trained in apprenticeships. A stamp duty holiday is also coming for those buying a property worth under £500,000. More support packages have been provided across the arts sector, and Also, as I talked about earlier in the episode last week, there's obviously the build message, which is quite enthusiastic by Boris Johnson, and obviously the jobs message as well, which has been reflected in the budget. We'll leave it there, and I'm shortly going to tell you how to submit your opinions, and I'll round it off. Do submit your opinions on what we've discussed in this episode. So the second part of the episode was the stuff under review, which we're going to be discussing next week. And we'll be discussing it in the second part of next week. So it's very easy to submit your opinions, and we would love to hear what you think. So firstly, if you want to do it the easier way, go to anchor.fm/underreviewcast. That's Anchor spelt ANCHOR, and under review is spelt UNDERREVIEW, and cast is obviously CAST, in case you need to brush up on your spelling. And also, if you would like to write instead of speak like a senior MP, you may email underreviewcast@gmail.com. That's underreviewcast@gmail.com. Just to round up, repeat those credentials: anchor.fm/underreviewcast and underreviewcast@gmail.com. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Under Review today. Make sure you're listening to that bit about submitting your opinions. We'd love to hear what you think. So the first question is, would you like to raise tax for these bold changes to take place? The bold changes, I mean the summer mini budget and all the new funding which is going into the economy. Also, would you spend this much money? Would you spend that much money? Is it just completely blown you away how much you're spending? And are we using lockdown too fast? Now that is a very big question. Or, if you really want, did we impose lockdown too late? Thank you for listening to Under Review this week. You just listened to Series 1, Episode 4. I was your host, Viggo Bryant Frost, and today you were joined by Oliver Whale. Please subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is on your platform, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.